Yo, what's going on, crew? Welcome back to the channel. And it's been about 2 years, going back into time about 2 years ago when this device was released in September 2020. And this was a really good big innovation when it came to a lot of phones being released with the Stylo pens, because it had the spring-loaded feature. It had a lot of different things to it. 6.8-inch display, which a lot of phones are now doing. It had a lot of cool, intriguing things that I wanted to talk about. But today we're going to be talking about the top 5 reasons to love the LG Stylo 6 in 2022. Stay locked in with me. Yo, what's going on, crew? Welcome back to the channel. So obviously we're going to be talking back about the LG Stylo 6 and going back in time 2 years ago in September when this beast was released. And it was actually a very highly anticipated smartphone that many people were looking forward to in the budget price point, because at that time there wasn't many phones that had stylus pens. LG was the first company to release a stylus inside of their phone, besides Samsung, which had that Note series that was very legendary, just to say the least. But LG actually offered the phones at a really reasonable price point, because you couldn't get a Note phone unless you paid at least $500 or more at that very moment in time. But dating back to 2022, LG released this thing around $200, but you could actually get it free when you went over to some prepaid carriers and picked it up. But we're going to be staying just about talking about this guy right here, because it actually, this guy right here, one of the phones I've been using, which is the TCL Stylus 5G, actually brought me back thinking about the LG Stylo 6 and how important it was to making this device right here, which offers very similar features to the LG Stylo 6. But there's still a lot of reason to love the LG Stylo 6, and I have my SIM card in it right now, and I've been using it for the past week, just reminiscing about how good it was when it was released or whatever. But make sure you guys stay locked in with me, and if you're brand new to the channel, I truly appreciate you for coming through. But if you're already a part of the crew, salute. So obviously there's about 5 reasons I have to talk about the LG Stylo 6, and we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail. But make sure you guys stay to the end of the video, because we're going to be jumping into the reasons, and there's not going to be any specific order that I'm talking about the features or whatever, the things that I like about this guy. But there's a lot of things that actually have me still kind of liking this device, and I'm going to share that with you right now in this video. So make sure you stay to the end of the video. But I just want to remind you to hit the like button so we can beat the YouTube algorithm and push this video out to more people, okay? So if you feel what I'm saying, stay locked in with me, and make sure you subscribe and get notified for more videos just like this. But the very first reason that this device right here was so intriguing back in 2020 and still is in 2022 is the screen display. And I still am infatuated with it. It's got a 6.8-inch LCD IPS display at 20:9 aspect ratio. So it feels wide when you're holding it, but it's still very slim. It's also a very tall phone as well, so it definitely has a nice size to it. It has like some square rounded corners on here, but the overall resolution is going to be a beauty when you're looking at it, because it's 1080 by 2460, 395 for the pixels per inch. So it's actually, when you're watching videos on this thing, like anything that you want to watch on YouTube or even Amazon Prime, Netflix, anything of that nature, comes out really, really beautiful on here. So I just want to give you guys a quick sneak peek at like some of the viewing angles on here, because this thing holds up very well, and even in 2022 But one of the things I did notice is that there are some video lags on here. I did get a software update on this device from, I actually updated it 3 times in a row from, it was like April, May, June, and now July. So it's running on July 2022, but you can see right here, it's a gorgeous panel to look at when you're looking at this thing dead on, and any angle, it just looks really good. It's got a dewdrop notch at the top. The chin is almost the same size as the forehead. The colors on here look absolutely beautiful because LG makes TVs, so they're also really good at making displays. It has a 2.5D curved glass on here as well. It's got high density pixels at 395 pixels per inch. So it doesn't matter what you're doing on here, whether you're looking at content on here, just to look at videos or YouTube, or if you just wanted to browse social media. They do have a 4GB model right now that I would recommend. And one of the problems that when this phone dropped is it had 3GB of RAM, which a lot of people were noticing with this performance of it, because it wasn't holding up to their idea of a budget phone. But at the time, 3GB of RAM was like considered just enough, the bare minimum or whatever. But now 2022, if you're coming out with a phone that has 3GB of RAM, it's almost laughable or whatever. So a lot of the phones that we see today have 4GB of RAM and up and stuff like that. So if you're checking out this device right now, it does have 4GB of RAM with the unlocked model from not Metro by T-Mobile. This is the Metro by T-Mobile version, but you can see on Amazon they have a 6GB model. A 64GB model with 4GB of RAM, making it's going to be extremely quick compared to the one that I'm using right now when it dropped on Metro. And that was one of the problems with LG, is that they would always drop a lower spec variant, and then the international model would always have the higher specs or whatever. So that was a big issue when it came to their, software and internal hardware and stuff like that. But obviously you can get this thing at a really low cost at about $150. So the price of it is actually exceptional when it comes down to what you're getting. And that comes into the second thing that I like to talk about when it comes to this device, because it has this built-in pen software inside of it, which is extremely helpful, not only for writing notes and stuff. You do got a bunch of other features like GIF capture and Swift text and coloring book, but I use this pen even just to browse the phone. It makes it a nice experience when you just want to point and shoot on here. So it gives you a nice feel. It makes it a little bit more smoother and easier to manage when you're browsing through different content on here. The pen kind of just makes it a little bit more refreshing to use. I definitely like creating thumbnails on here with the LG, with the drawing mechanism on here built in. It's definitely like a second limb for this. It's like a great addition with this device. So I'm really impressed with the pen feature. It has a little snap mechanism that you could pop it into the phone. So I do a lot of drawing. I do just a lot of browsing with it instead of using my finger or whatever. It makes it a little bit easier to manage the different content that I'm looking at. The thing has a lot of features that I want to get into with the pen. So you could use it with Sketchbook, Autodesk Sketchbook, Keep Notes, just to name a few. We also have another called Adobe Draw, which I did download on here, and so you got the Photoshop app right there. But you can pretty much just use this thing to your own discretion, and it's definitely helpful to have a stylus pen, in my opinion, versus not having one at all. So I definitely would recommend it if you just want to take notes, highlight a few things on your device. you know, you know what I'm saying, chapter 1, John, verse 4. I highlighted verse 18 right here. Such love has no fear, because perfect love expels all fear. You know what I'm saying? So you could just like literally jot notes, make different like highlights and stuff like that when you're using the pen feature. The third reason, the first reason obviously was the display. The second reason obviously was the pen. Now the third reason is the call quality was really, really good on here. It's still really good. That's one of the things I noticed on here. It does have dual mics, one at the top, one at the bottom. It also has dual speakers with DTS surround sound audio. So when you're listening to music on this thing, you're gonna notice that it has like a decent hi-fi jack on here for 3.5 millimeter audio quality. So when you plug a pair of headphones into this thing, it's going to be pretty solid. It also had NFC on here as well as you know what I'm saying, just to name a few features that it did have. So that NFC feature was really clutch, because you can definitely do mobile payments with it. But the call quality was really good. It sounded really loud and detailed. And also when I was listening to music, or even just making phone calls on the earpiece or the speakerphone, I was able to hear the person on the other end with no issues whatsoever. It sounded louder than even my TCL Stylus 5G right here. And I had called someone on this phone, and then I called them back on this phone, and they even said I sounded better on the LG phone, which is pretty good. A phone 2 years ago versus a phone now. Still getting better call quality on the LG. So I did notice that. The fourth reason is the actual build quality of this thing was a tank. The cameras sat flush across the device, and you can see it has this the Amongst Us eyes on here. I don't know if you guys know that game from the Play Store or whatever, rear fingerprint sensor on here. But if you go into the Play Store, you know what I'm talking about. Just type Amongst Us, I think it's what it's called. But it's got that same, let me show you what I'm talking about. Among Us. The character from Among Us, you see his goggles right here or whatever. That's what the camera looks like. It's got that little circular oval shape on here with the triple camera setup. And inside of the triple camera setup, we're getting a 13 megapixel main, 5 megapixel wide, and 5 megapixel portrait, and 13 megapixel selfie on the front. And the video quality on the rear is very stabilized, which I was very impressed with when I started using this device back in 2020. And that was one of the things I fell in love with, was the video quality, because I was extremely impressed with how stable it was and how good it was able to basically just, it had like a really good steady shot. It wasn't shaky compared to some of the other budget phones. So that was also really standoutish. But I really like that Among Us goggles on here with the you get the brushed plastic sides, which is really good. A power button right here, which you can unlock it with. A Google Assistant button on the bottom, which you could definitely like use to just ask it stuff. Tell me a joke or something. Tell me a joke. And so you get to the Google Assistant. It says that you could ask it pretty much anything you want. You also got the volume rockers right above that, making it really helpful to have that Google Assistant fingerprint right where you need it to be. Cameras flush into the back of the phone, dual speakers, dual microphones. Build quality was excellent, and then you did get the headphone jack down below with the extra audio input, which sounded really good. And then your stylus built right in here, you could just press that in. So it was just a really reasonable, really sophisticated look and design, something that was just very different that we hadn't really seen. But that Among Us, the design of this, like I think it influenced the Pixel 6, because the Pixel 6 came out to right about here on each side, and it was a little bit bigger, but it popped up a little bit, so that was the only difference. But I really liked this design. In my opinion, it stood out in a lot of ways. So we talked about the price, the features, the build quality, the sound quality, and everything like that. Low key, the camera was exceptional. So those are the top 5 reasons why I love the you know what I'm saying, the LG Stylo 6 in 2022. The screen is amazing. The pen was really great. Still is pretty good. Call quality was excellent. A really nice price at $124 to $155, depending on where you get it. Solid features in here with the NFC, the pen feature, the Google Assistant button on the side. It does rock Android 10 on here with the July 1st, 2022 on here. So, you know, you got game launcher on here, customization with the smart world. If you go into settings, I'll show you some of the features right here. So in display, you can adjust the display size, one-handed operation when you swipe across with your finger on the top or the bottom. So, you know, that was pretty useful as well. You could change it to a second screen to get rid of the notch if you wanted to. You know, extensions, they got knock on to turn off and on, smart clean in, things of that sort. And you know, this device just held up very well. It wasn't the fastest device I had ever used, but it did have hotspot Wi-Fi calling on here too, for if you want to make more HD clear calls or whatever, save data inside your crib. Instead of using the mobile data connection, you could use the Wi-Fi. But make sure you, if you have a question, leave it down below, and also ring the bells and hit the like button as well. Just want to remind you to do that before you get out of here. But I truly appreciate you for coming through if you're new to the crew. But if you're already part of the crew, salute, and I'm gonna get right back with you. But in the meantime, have a great morning, afternoon, evening, and depending on where you are, have a great night. Later, crew. Peace.